Welcome back to our Form 5 Agricultural Science Revision work. We are going to look at a different topic today, which is organic production. Organic production. Let me just give you a brief background that in our production of crops and livestock, there's a traditional way that we have always followed in producing those crops and livestock, whereby we have to, for crops, we have to grow those crops, apply our artificial fertilizers. We can also use certain chemical substances such as pesticides, which we normally buy from these outlets for controlling pests and diseases. We spray our crops, and our crops are going to be harvested. We apply different types of substances. Some farmers go to the extent of producing crops using genetically modifying technology. We can also use antibodies for our animals, growth hormones for our crops, rooting powder. All those chemical substances or materials are normally used in our traditional way of growing crops. But we want to focus on a different production, type of production, which we call organic farming. So we are going to look at the first part here, our revision question on this one. I've got two questions. First question is, organic production is an example of farming practice. Describe what is meant by the term organic production. This is also a farming practice. Remember, we talked about different types of practices such as monoculture, crop rotation, and mixed farming. So we also have this organic production, organic farming. So the first part of this question reads, describe what is meant by the term organic production. What is organic production? What's the difference between this type of production and the type of production that we all know? So organic production is explained this way. It's actually a method of crop production, of livestock production, which will use specific organic pesticide. If you are growing crops, it means that you are going to use specific pesticides. You are going to use those pesticides to control pests instead of using the artificial pesticide. You are also going to grow those crops using using some substances which are of no artificial means. You grow them without using artificial fertilizer, grow them without artificial pesticides. Instead, you are going to use natural fertilizers such as manure. You are going to use chemicals which are also organic to control pests. So we use organic pesticide if you have to use those pesticides to control your pests. You can also use biological methods to control the pests and even diseases on your farm. So that is what we mean by organic farming. In short, we are saying organic farming, organic production is a method of producing crops using organic fertilizers or manure. You don't use artificial fertilizers. Also, you use specific type of organic pesticide. Therefore, there's no use of artificial pesticides or synthetic pesticides. That is what we mean by organic. At the same time, we don't encourage use of antibiotics. The only time that you can use these antibiotics is when you are treating illnesses. You don't have to use growth hormone, and no genetically modified organisms are used in this system. That is what we mean by organic production. So you need to actually state two main things here. One, how are the crops going to be supplied with nutrients in organic farming? The crops are supplied with nutrients by the organic fertilizer that you are using, such as manure, crop manure, green manure, compost manure, and so forth. That's how the nutrients are going to be added to the soil for your crops. Then two, crops are supposed to be protected against pests and diseases. How is it going to be done in organic production? In organic production, you can protect your crops against these pests by using either organic pesticides, which are not same as the artificial pesticide, which are full of chemicals, and they normally have some residues which can affect even the consumers and other insects. At the same time, you can still use biological method. You can still employ crop rotation in your system. That's one thing that you should take note of when you are talking about organic production. Mention these two main areas: how nutrients are supplied to the crops and how pests and diseases are controlled or reduced. Then probably you can also mention what should not be included in the production. We have question number 2 here. Describe 2 benefits and 2 potential problems of organic production. We have 2 benefits and 2 problems. Let's look at the benefits which are here. Sustainability. When you talk about sustainability, by practicing organic farming, your soil is going to be sustained, meaning that it's able to produce for a longer period and produce better crops for a longer period. The yield is going to be maintained because we are using organic fertilizers. We are using manure, which is going to improve both the fertility of the soil and the soil structure. It will be improved. Then this system is usually environmentally friendly. It doesn't affect the environment the way artificial fertilizers or synthetic pesticides do. When you apply artificial fertilizer, the residual fertilizer that remain in the soil can still get into the water resources in the soil, can be washed away during soil erosion to our rivers and dams, affecting the organisms in the water. And the pesticide that you are applying can still affect other organisms which are beneficial to the farmer, such as bees. Bees come to our fields to pollinate the flowers. They collect nectar and the pollen, but at the same time they help in pollination. Those are beneficial organisms. But then, if you are using these organic, man-made pesticide, the artificial one, it's going to pollute the environment, whereby such beneficial organisms like bees can be affected. Human beings can be affected through the water which is polluted by these chemical substances we are adding to the soil or to the environment. So organic farming is environmental friendly. It doesn't do all those. There's no pollution of the environment. Instead, the soil is going to be maintained, the soil structure is going to be improved, and improving the soil nutrient. Then it also have a lower negative impact on insects. I've already mentioned these, insects and animals. No much impact on insects like bees, animals which graze in the environment. Because sometimes you spray your fertilizer, your chemicals, and then that chemical you are spraying may drift to the nearby area where animals graze. Or maybe you are spraying weed killers, herbicides, to kill weeds. In that area, some good vegetation will grow, which will now be grazed by the animals, and the animal can be affected. So there's no negative impact. The other benefit is enhancement of soil structure and fertility. I've already mentioned this. Soil structure will be improved because the organic matter binds the soil particles together. The organic matter decomposes, releasing the nitrogen, the nitrate which is there in the plant, into the soil. Therefore, the soil is going to be the soil fertility is going to be improved. And at the same time, there is increased biological diversity in the sense that the living organism, plants and animals within that area will be increased because organic fertilizer that we are using improves and encourages, improves the soil structure, the soil fertility, and therefore there will be more microorganisms which can also come into the soil. Say, for example, in the plot, you have applied organic fertilizers. That organic fertilizer can also encourage the multiplication of microorganisms in that soil, such as earthworm, which are microorganisms, bacteria, which are beneficial to the soil, fix nitrogen. They are going to multiply. So you have diversity of organisms or different types of organisms in your area, or in your field, on your farm. So that is one thing that you have. But a soil that has got less content of organic matter, you may not find earthworm living in that area. You may have some bacteria, quite all right, but other type of organism may not be there. It also reduces the risk of farm workers. The risk. What are these risks? When you're applying these chemicals, you inhale them and they can affect you. They can actually cause death if you inhale too much, if you're not well protected. So pesticides, which we normally use, those artificial pesticides we use, can affect us. But with organic pesticides, pesticides and use of biological, this does not affect. Therefore, you are going to reduce the risk of farm worker in terms of their health. And also, there is no need for protective gear, no need for protective clothing when you are using these. You don't need to put on protective clothing when you are applying organic fertilizer, when you are using green manure or compost. You may also have better flavor. Our crops are going to have better flavor. Why? Because there is a variety of nutrients found in the soil, which the crops are going to use. But we are using artificial fertilizers, for example. 2-3-2. You have three major elements there: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So your plants will be limited only to those three. Whereas a plant or a crop which is grown using organic fertilizers, there is a variety of nutrients. Macro and micro nutrients are available in that fertilizer, which will now benefit the plant and make the plant have a better flavor and even better taste. Organic farms save energy. Energy is saved. Remember, energy is never lost. It's only converted from one form to another. The energy which is in the plant is not lost as such. It will be saved because it will be converted into other nutrient, other forms. Protein in plants can die. They add those nutrients to the soil. The plants which are going to grow there will still absorb those, and then convert it into other microorganisms which are in the soil can still absorb those nutrients, or you eat those organic materials and then convert it into their animal protein. So you are saving that energy. It's not completely lost as such. So you are changing the energy from one form into another instead of completely losing it. It also contributes to slow global warming. We are maintaining our environment. There will be no destruction of the ozone layer through the use of these chemicals, because certain pesticides actually affect the ozone layer somehow. So by using organic materials, we are contributing to slow global warming. And also fewer pesticides will be used, or fertilizer residues in food will be avoided. These are some of the benefits that we have. And you don't have to buy fertilizers and chemicals or pesticides, artificial pesticides and artificial fertilizer every time when you're using these. In fact, you don't even buy them at all. So you're getting manure. If you're buying fertilizer, organic fertilizer, it's much cheaper. So you don't have to buy these organic fertilizers. Right, let's look at the next part. The next question says we need to describe 2 benefits and 2 potential problems. So we have talked about the benefit here. Now let's look at the potential problems. What could be the problems of using organic fertilizer? 1, organic food is more expensive. When farmers produce crops using organic means, the food tends to be expensive. Why? Because for a farmer to produce a large quantity of crop, you need to grow it on a large scale. And for you to grow that on a large scale, you need to have a lot of manure applied. And for you to apply a lot of manure, there's more labor which is needed to apply that manure, to mix the manure in the soil. If you're not using some equipment, some machinery. So there will be, the food which will be produced will be more costly. It tends to be more expensive. And the other reason why this food becomes more expensive, because of its nutritional value. It has more nutritional value compared to these food stuff we are growing using artificial fertilizers and pesticides. So it becomes more important to the consumer. That's why the farmer will also put, a premium price on that, so that you can earn something from there. Organic manure may cause smell, attract pests and insects. That's another potential problem. Of course, not all organic manures have smell. For example, green manure has no smell. Crop manure may have smell, but not as much. We also have compost manure, it has no smell. But there are certain type of manure which may have characteristic smell. Pig manure, for example, it has that bad smell, which some farmers may not actually prefer. Take your workers to go and apply pig manure. And some may also detest the chicken manure because it's that ammonia substance being produced. It has got that smell. So other farmers may not like that, or some workers may not like that. And some of these, they attract certain pests because they have to come in and break down those organisms. And the other pests are also going to multiply. Certain insects also come in because they are attracted by those that manure which you are using. There may be need, if you are using this organic, there may be need for you to train yourself or to train your workers who are working on that farm to know exactly what should be done when you are using organic method of production. Therefore, you need skills. Those skills should be special skills which may not be available when you are using artificial fertilizer. Skill of how to apply that manure, when to apply the manure, and the quantity of manure should be applied. Which should be applied. You need to know all those. Then some organic chemical alternatives are more expensive. Yes, nowadays we have organic pesticides. They are very expensive when you are buying them, especially when you are growing those crops which you need to be sprayed almost every week. You have to buy more of that organic pesticide, and it becomes very expensive. Somehow, yield tends to be lower compared to a farmer who is using artificial fertilizer. This is one drawback, one potential problem. Yields are slightly lower because the growth rate of plants, depending on the type of plant, may not be as much as one using artificial fertilizers. Artificial fertilizer is very rich because it's concentrated, it adds more nutrient that dissolves fast, makes the crop absorb those nutrients quickly, and they grow very fast. But then with this one, it tends to be somehow slow because the organic fertilizer has to decompose first and then release the nutrient. So even the growth rate is going to be slower when you're using organic fertilizer. Another problem could be production costs, which tend to be higher. I've already mentioned that part. And also more labor is usually needed. The labor could be in terms of application of these organic fertilizers. To store them fertilizer is also another problem that you may face. Because a farmer who has 2 bags of 232 fertilizer, for example, can easily be stored in your storeroom. those two bags of fertilizer, 50 kg bags of 232 fertilizer, can cover a very big field. But you cannot use 2 bags of compost manure in the same size of field where you applied the artificial fertilizer. So you need to have storage facility also where you can put this manure. It's very hectic to store that kind of manure. Transporting this also needs a lot of work. So that's why we need more labor when you are using this. We also have marketing and the distribution can be less efficient. Yes, it's true. When you are getting to sell your product here, it tends to be very inefficient in the sense that some farmer may take your product to be very expensive. Therefore, it becomes very hectic for you to market and even to distribute. Distribution here can be distribution of the product themselves and also distribution of the inputs becomes very inefficient somehow. Organic farming is unlikely to produce enough food to feed the whole world or the world population. Cannot produce a lot of food which will cover many people in a community because of its inefficiency. It has to be grown slightly on a smaller scale, or if you have to use a very big field, you may not apply as much fertilizer as needed to supply those nutrients to make the crops grow and produce according to your expectation in terms of yield. It may also need to be certified as an organic farmer, organic producer, meaning the farmer should be certified as an organic producer. You cannot just start selling your product or selling your product as organic products. You need to be certified by the authority who have inspected and checked your farm and make sure that you are specifically using this organic fertilizer only, organic pesticides, no artificial component in it. Then you are given that certification. That's when you can now sell your organic product. Without that, many people may not agree as to why your crop is expensive or your product is expensive simply because you are producing them using organic fertilizer. Where are the proof? So certification is needed. So you may also have a high risk of illness due to microbial contamination from organic fertilizers. Yes, some of them may contaminate your crop, especially some certain manure when they are decomposing. They may attract those microorganisms and then may contaminate your product. These are the potential problems of organic farming. However, we have the potential problems, but it has also quite good benefits, as we have mentioned. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for paying attention to this lesson. We'll meet again as we talk about the next topic. Have a good day.